and all your close friends are starting to wonder why your muscles have muscles that are continuously flexing, and it looks like you ate the previous guy that stepped on stage, and the guy before that time, and the guy before that time. That's how full you are. Vigorous Steve here, back with the Battle of the Anabolics. Let's compare Superdrol to Anadrol. This was a heavily requested comparison, and let me know down below in the comment section which comparison you would like to see next. Then I can start preparing material for next week or the weeks after. I already started working on a Trenbolone versus Mint versus Nandrolone video. So we've got all of the injectable, progestogenic, prolactin bonanza, 90 NOR derivatives in one place and discuss practical applications and how they compare amongst each other. So stay tuned for that. Should be dropping next week, and whatever you would like to see next in the epic steroid battles in history video series, let me know down below in the comment section and I'll get started on those. Now, from all the oral anabolic androgenic steroids that we can choose from, I feel that Superdrol and Anadrol are kind of tied for second place. So this video is to figure out which compound is going to be second and which compound is going to be third. Now, again, that's based on my personal experience and what I've seen with clients. So I might be a little bit biased in this ranking scenario. Well, you guys know that Anavar is going to be first. We'll never get kicked off first place. All things considering, Anavar wins out of all the anabolic androgenic steroids which we take orally, hands down. But maybe we can put Superdrol in second place or Anadrol in second place. Now, the use of Superdrol and Anadrol is very circumstantial. These are not compounds that you run for longer periods of time. So with Anavar, for example, you could run a low dose for a couple weeks in duration. Same with Turinabol. But Superdrol and Anadrol, from everything that I've seen, a higher dose for a shorter period of time seems to be more productive to break through strength plateaus or to load up your physique when you're glycogen deficient coming into a contest. So I want to go over the practical applications of Superdrol and Anadrol first before we go into the quick facts and the history and then make the head-on-head comparison discussing the side effects and the positive effects. Now, both compounds generally are used to break through strength plateaus. So let's say you're at the end of the off-season, you're already maxed out on calories, and you're kind of maxed out on the cycle, and pushing it any further or longer would just make you more unhealthy than is good for you. But you still want to keep going for maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks. You want to beat the logbook because strength has been kind of stalling at the end, and you physically can't eat any more than you're doing right now. Eating 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 calories even, you've completely optimized your training protocol. You know when to deload, you know when to take rest, and you know when to push it. Everything's in place, but you're still stalling, and the food is just making you fat at this point. Then, and only then, during the off-season, then it might be applicable to sprinkle in some Superdrol or Anadrol to take your strength to the next level, sign off on the off season, and then go into a nice cruise and kind of clean out and relax your central nervous system. So let's say you've got a deload coming up in 2 weeks, for example, or 4 weeks. Then you might use 20 to 30 milligrams of Superdrol, right? The last 2 weeks leading into a deload to really set your numbers and increase your strength and obviously accrue some new muscle tissue. After that, you take a break, right? The short window of time that Superdrol is incorporated, because after 10, 14 days, appetite already starts to come down and the liver stress starts to get worse and worse and worse. And with Anadrol, you might be able to push it to 4 weeks, but most people already know that they start to lose appetite as well after the second week. And then some guys are able to power shove and power through, so they force feed themselves, right, with whatever amount of calories they were eating at the end of the off season. And let's say they start with 50 milligrams of Anadrol the first 2 weeks. The appetite is already going down, but it's doable, I would say. And then the last 2 weeks, they finish off with 100 milligrams of Anadrol per day. And then appetite really becomes an issue, right? It's almost impossible to get the 6,000 calories in that they were eating previously, but they were still making tremendous strength gains. So it's the suffering is worth it, right? No pain, no gain. So I would say Superdrol is run in dosages ranging from 20 to 30 milligrams. Some guys like 40, but I think that's a little bit too much. For 10 to 14 days at the end of this off season, and Anadrol ranging in dosages from 50 to 100 milligrams for a duration of usually 2 weeks, but some guys are able to push it up to 4 weeks even. And after that, you take a nice long rest to clean out from all this oral steroids that you were taking, give your liver a break, detoxify, improve your liver function again, and also come down from the insane amount of food that you're eating because, well, appetite is going to be non-existent by the end of these protocols. So you need to break both physically and mentally from this force feeding that is going to occur somewhere at the end of dosing these compounds. Some people like to use Superdrol or Anadrol intermittently while they're trying to improve specific body parts during the off-season. So instead of running these compounds every day, they choose to only run it pre-workout 1 time per week, once per week, guys, no longer, because otherwise it's no longer sustainable. So you should be able, assuming that you're able to manage your liver health and the appetite reduction, which occurs the next day almost acutely after a single dose of Superdrol or Anadrol. So if you're able to manage all the side effects and you can restrict yourself to a single dose per week, then you might be able to run these compounds for even 8 weeks in duration. Again, the exposure window is relatively short, but it's extended because you're only dosing the Superdrol or Anadrol once per week. So let's say you want to bring up legs, for example, you would use 30 milligrams Superdrol or 100 milligrams Anadrol pre-workout, all in a single serving, taken about 1 hour before the workout. You can do that sublingually. You can take that orally with grapefruit juice, without grapefruit juice. I have many different ways to offer alternative administration routes. I made a video about that. You can watch that here and watch this liver video also because you're going to need it. My liver health is very important while running Superdrol or Anadrol for any short or prolonged period of time. So 30 milligrams Superdrol before leg day, for example, or 100 milligrams Anadrol before leg day, all in single dose with whatever administration protocol you prefer. But on chest day, considering that it's a smaller body part, right, you don't need so many androgens in your bloodstream, maybe you can get away with 20 milligrams Superdrol or 50 milligrams Anadrol, right? So it's a little bit body part dependent on how these compounds are dosed once a week pre-workout. And then the last scenario where I feel either of these compounds are applicable and sometimes are even combined are pre-contest. Now, Superdrol you can run for about 2 weeks. That's sometimes even done with oral halotestin. So that's a gazillion amount of liver stress. So keep that in mind, guys. You need every precaution in place to keep your liver healthy when combining Superdrol with halotestin. Again, that's only for contest. I would not consider doing that for a photo shoot. And if you're just trying to peak for the beach, well, I would just look into Anavar or Turinabol. Already made a comparison video. You can watch that here. So let's say you're doing a proper photo shoot to market your brand being you. I would only look into Superdrol with maybe 1 or 2 days of Anadrol during your carb load. And if you're preparing for a contest where you need to win and there's a pro card or prize money or reputation on the line, yeah, Superdrol, halotestin, and maybe even Anadrol at the end might be required, right? Depending on the level of the competition and how nasty you want to look. So dosages vary between, again, 10 milligrams to 30 milligrams of Superdrol. The dose can be lower if you're combining that with halotestin. So I would say that it's very effective to combine 20 milligrams Superdrol with 20 milligrams halotestin instead of taking 30 milligrams of one or the other. But honestly, when it comes to glycogen retention and favorable electrolyte balance, there's nothing like Anadrol. But only for a very short window of time. There's a window of opportunity where Anadrol loads glycogen and promotes favorable electrolyte balance. And then from one day to the next, you spill over and there's a tremendous amount of subcutaneous water. So you'll have to experiment a little bit with loading with Anadrol during a carb load up until 4 weeks before the competition, so you don't risk spilling over or holding a little bit of subcutaneous water on the day of the contest. And then you'll have to figure out if you can run Anadrol at a little bit higher dosages, maybe 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 1 week even, right? And it really depends on the individual because some guys can only take Anadrol for 2 days until you start to spill and glaze over, which is, of course, highly undesired. So you'll have to experiment with that a little bit. And in that context, you might run Superdrol for 2 weeks, maybe even in combination with halotestin leading into the contest. Again, ton of orals. And then for the 2 or 3 days that you're carb loading, there might be a small serving of Anadrol in place to promote glycogen retention and favorable mineral retention, making you look even fuller. So it's the Superdrol and the halotestin that makes you look full and hard, and the Anadrol makes you look blown up. And all your close friends are starting to wonder why your muscles have muscles that are continuously flexing, and it looks like you ate the previous guy that stepped on stage, and the guy before that time, and the guy before that time. That's how full you are. Yeah? You have to use your imagination a little bit. What a drug protocol like this is going to result into. Again, make sure you have your liver protection methods in place, because your liver will not be happy if you do something like this. But again, at higher levels, sometimes it's required. So the dosages in that context range from 25 milligrams Anadrol to even 50 milligrams Anadrol with meals while carb loading. Quite high, guys. So it's still lower than the therapeutic dosages of Anadrol for anemia when Anadrol is prescribed in particular medical settings, but dosages of 100 milligrams Anadrol, 150, 200, even 300 milligrams Anadrol at the top level is not unheard of. So, right, not something you have to try or experiment with, but at certain levels that might be required to win and show up freaky. So to summarize, regarding their practical applications, both Superdrol and Anadrol are generally used at the end of the off-season or contest prep. Now, for Superdrol, the duration window is usually between 10 to 14 days before side effects become intolerable. And with Anadrol, it's a bit circumstantial. So during the off-season, it might be 2 to 4 weeks. And during a contest prep, if required, maybe 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, depending on how fast you develop water retention, which is something you definitely don't want when you do a photo shoot or step on stage, right? Fighting for a pro card or prize money. And then, some people like to use it intermittently, but there's so many different pre-workout protocols you can incorporate besides Superdrol and Anadrol. It might still have its place if you really need to improve a particular body part. But again, there's many different pre-workout protocols involving IGF-1, GHK copper, etc., right? Insulin. Ton of different pre-workout methods, because there's a lot of different compounds you can look into to bring up weaker body parts. If you really dive into the pharmacodynamics and look for opportunities to create synergy, so you can use the lowest effective dose and reduce the potential for side effects, or in this case, liver stress. So instead of running 20, 30 milligrams of Superdrol or 50 to 100 milligrams Anadrol pre-workout 1 time per week, maybe you just use 10 milligrams Superdrol or 25 milligrams Anadrol, because you've got a couple different compounds in place which all promote synergy on that single day of the week that you're trying to improve a weaker body part, because they all potentiate a decent amount of anabolism without causing tremendous side effects, because you're running them at lower dosages, right? So explore a couple different options and then maybe combine different compounds to bring up weaker body parts instead of blasting the Superdrol or blasting the Anadrol. Your liver will certainly thank you for it, and potentially you should be able to run lowest effective dosages 1 time per week for, a couple weeks, maybe even months in duration without any adverse effects. And keep in mind that building muscle tissue takes time, and the longer you can stimulate the growth of muscle tissue, the better it's going to grow, and the more that muscle is going to stick, right? When you inevitably come off these compounds and go into a cruise. Really hope this helps, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides to bodybuilding pharmacology, you can find the ebooks on my website, vigoroussteve.com/shop. Personalized advice always available through consultations. You can find the rates in the consultations section. Follow me on Instagram @vigoroussteve. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.